Hello everybody, welcome to SketchCraft Live, and this is not my art. We are doing another art tips right now. This comes from Instagram, I believe. We got a fan, Darth Andrew, has some questions about how to set up this art. Joining me to talk about this tonight is Mega Potato. Say hi.
Hey, it's Lead Heavy here.
Hey, Mega Potato. So, this right here is a fan who sent me a question and said, hey Rob, how can I make this painting he did based off a scene from the Jedi Academy game look more three-dimensional than it is? It's a basic question that he had. So I said, send me a decent high res, and I don't really care if it's layered at this point because I'm just going to go through my process. Interesting. So let's just create a new layer in Photoshop and fill it with black. Oh no. Hold on, folks. I should have tested this out before I did it. Nope. I got to check this out. This is great. So here's another key little issue. Sometimes
here's an art tip.
Sometimes Photoshop or the Wacom just drops your Wacom. You know, if your Cintiq stops working, reload, replace your Wacom preferences, close Photoshop down, otherwise it'll break Photoshop, and then restart Photoshop.
And it happens more than you can imagine.
It's just weird. Happens to you, right?
If you have a Wacom, yep. If you have a Wacom, you'll be sitting there just drawing on it. You'll go do something, you come back, and then you have to redo all your preferences and shit. And you're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
So now we can do this all over again. So in Photoshop, create a new layer, and let's just fill it with black. And we'll set it to color so I can start to look at the value. Now, when someone asks me how can their stuff look more three-dimensional, I'm going to tell you it all comes down to value. Value is black and white. It's the lightness and the darkness of an image. Color harmony is called hue, and that's a whole separate conversation. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So right now, let's just look at the image in black and white. And in black and white, you can see it's primarily neutral. Other than this white lightsaber blade, there's no white in the image. It's 50% gray, and then there's some shadows over here. And if you look here, let's just grab a little red. Here we have some strong black shadows, and this is practically lit completely. Same here. Like look at the shadows here, and look how light that is there. Look at the darkness behind this statue and how light it is there. Same in here. So what we can do very quickly is we'll just create a layer. Multiply is fine. I'm going to turn this down. I like to paint it. I like to fill it in with black. Set it to about 60%. And then I'm going to, in the mask, I'm just going to come in here really quickly and try to, render out the shapes. And this is about building mass and volume. You have to think about your shapes and anything you're doing art-wise three-dimensionally. That's why whenever I'm doing my roughies, I spend a lot of time drawing them three-dimensionally, little construction zones and stuff. So how I see this image isn't how I see it in my head. I'll show you. I see it more like this. I see a three-dimensional shape, like a chess piece that sticks out forward and then recedes into this piece. And this leg, should three-dimensionally plop out here, that then three-dimensionally in perspective moves here. And here this may be a thing covering the leg, a cloth of some sort. This is all three-dimensional. And so the trick is to then, render the shapes following that thing. So underneath wise, the drawing's a little flat for me, but based on just basic lighting, we could start to quickly come in here and try to pop shapes out three-dimensionally based on the current lighting scheme. Like if you think if the light source is coming this way, it's going to be darker on the inside of this leg. It's going to be way darker here. He's probably going to cast a shadow based on this leg here. And in cinematic lighting terms, they call this the pool of light. You want to figure out where like your concentrated lighting scheme is, and then sort of create like a little warm pool of it. And if we come here, we can pop up some of those highlights. And if we take the lasso tool, and actually set it to freeform lasso, we can come around here. And just quickly see how I pop that forward, just by adding some more contrast shadows right behind it. And then if I select inverse that, I can come here and create a bit more of a gradation into that. And then less of an airbrush and more of a solid brush here to create some painterly defining strokes.
Would you have, I know this is a little offset besides the background, but would you have made that character of the lightsaber maybe bigger so it's like she's closer to the camera?
Depends on the scale of the scene, man.
Okay.
I don't think that naturally. If she's
Matters.
sunken below, if she's on the floor and the floor is down here, that's how low she would be. Now, if you're saying if I would compose it, that changes the whole framing. And I think the framing of the shot is based on a scene in the game. So, for him, that probably. But what I would do is very carefully think about, where the light is coming from. Like this right here is probably, going to cast a shadow this way. I'm just going to cast. So the only thing that's going to get hit with light is like these tips of, and it's going to fall more into shadow as it recedes into that plane. And then you can create an overlay layer. And when white, I'm going to fill this with white. And then I like to paint in masks, folks. So I only have to hit the X key to jump between positive and negative. But in white, I can come here and start to see how that contrast makes it appear more three-dimensional. And I'm not putting it all over the image. If the whole thing has giant contrast halos and lights, then there's no contrast. It's based on just thinking about where this light source is, say right there, and maybe she's definitely more lit from the left. So she's got some rim lighting here based on that light source, and then she's also going to be underlit based on that lightsaber, but she's not any kind of lit now. And then less around here, but definitely around the waist. And then we can probably come around the very rim here if we wanted to. And I think that alone right there, starts to make a pretty big difference if we just turn it off and on.
Yeah.
So this is very basic lighting. Take your time with this, folks. Like really think this kind of stuff through. You should see this fan. He should paint light in only black and white for a year and he will get better. Yeah, if he just does things tonally, he can get better. But if he's just painting things in black and white, he'll still paint them like this. Right? he'll still paint them flatly. The thing is to think about all your shapes three-dimensionally and to think about where the lighting is coming from. Like really where it's coming from, and really just systematically. You don't even need a computer to render out some crazy reference image. Just think about, doesn't have to be perfect. Just think about if the lighting's coming here, and you're probably not going to see, you know, what's going on in here too much. You're probably going to see more of what's coming here. Let me turn it to like an overlay layer. You know, and then you want to make certain that you're not adding too much whites. The further back you go, it's more the white, the brightest highlight toward the center of your image would be more neutral. And technically speaking, the foreground things should be darker than the background things, you know? So that's a whole nother thing. Like, you could make the entire image more of like a, say the darkest thing in the image is more of like a 90% black. And if we set this to lighten, it will fill the darkest with 90%. We can turn that down just a little bit so there's some contrast. That way anything that's forward would be 100% black. So I can then add her, right? I can add her and take 100% black and then start to make her, to pop her forward. In Copics, this is why I've shown Brandon this stuff. This is why I have Brandon rendering things in 50% and 70% grays, you know? And then once they dry, it's thrown down another because you still leaves you room for 100% black. You know, and it's these little fluctuations of blackness, the black and dark, like that right there. See that step? That right there should be, if the light's up here, you wouldn't even see that, you know? And come back here. So, let's turn that off and on. So this is not super complicated. It just requires, you know, focus and basic problem solving. You know, and then you could think about the color. Like, you could always, I mean, if we take the exact same thing and just quickly set it down to an overlay and duplicate, set that down to a multiple, or yeah, multiply, or we'll do color. You know, you could take the same thing, kind of get you know, basic coloring over it.
And with the lighting, you just kind of use that whole push and pull method where you're bringing.
Yeah, and see here, because I use that as the value, see how the reds are coming out on her? I didn't add reds in there, guys. That's because the value is pulling those reds out of the ones that he already has. See? It's that value. And so now you see her, right? And then she can use some more. Once you kind of have the basic lighting, you can come in here on top and add, you know, like a nice little screen or a highlight, hard light with your yellow glows. And you could come in here and give her a nice, maybe more like a hard light. Color dodge. Yeah, maybe more like a color dodge. You can come over here and give her some nice glows, right? Take that red. Kind of help accentuate some of the hue, you know? Very lightly come here and wherever it's at its brightest, get a little bit of a hot spot. Woohoo! Let's put that back on top. Okay. So we went from that to this in exactly 14 minutes.
Not bad.
Not bad. Brendan, you have any questions about this process, or
I have comments. I don't have like questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you know, maybe this person didn't know how to do this. You know, that's why they hit you up. And I think they're not going to just know how to do it right away. But I think it's a good first step in just figuring out lighting characters. And we've done videos before where you showed how the Bucky O'Hare video where lighting makes everything. And would you suggest maybe? I know you told me in the past to take maybe a statue or an action figure and just have a lamp and kind of rotate it around and just see how the light reflects off the muscles, the arms, the characters. Would that be something that this person could do also? To just kind
Yeah,
of get a
rather
feel?
than studying 3D games and where it has weird topography and it's sort of simulated, a lot of things in games are like, especially older games, even Jedi Academy, a lot of the lighting was pre-baked in. It's all kind of fakery. So the way I would always say is, if you want to learn how to draw three-dimensionally without 3D models, is get a nice statue, like a toy, a really good sculpt, something kind of big, and you can light it. Get a nice big toy action figure, and take a little desk lamp and you can get a two light scheme, one light scheme, underlight it, backlight it, put the 45-degree angle. I always think about light coming down, light coming in underneath, light coming from behind, and then two lights, And if you just focus on those three or four basic schemes, you don't need any more than that ever. You know what I mean? Like, it's very simple. You don't have to get complex with this. But studying how light hits things is, I mean, I've seen people go, you get a 3D program like DAZ 3D or Maya, you set up these complicated lighting setups, and you look how everything renders. It's not actually that important. First off, you're not gonna have time to do that in production. When you're sitting in a room with the producer and you got to do something like right now before lunch, like if they said, hey, by lunch I want to see a second pass on this, you're not gonna be able to go into a program and button click your way to finishing the art. You have to sit down and use basic logic solving. So you have to think about how light hits it. And that's why when I do my silhouette little roughy models, I'll fill it up with gray and then erase out the light in the mask, like by adding the highlights, because I found it easier for me to do the subtractive method versus trying to add shadows everywhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I just found it was easier. And then once I started getting in that way, then I could found like, well, sometimes you have to add the shadows when you need less. And sometimes when you need more shadows, it's easier to just cut out the shadows and add the light. So in painting, when you want to add darkness, they call that glazing. And then when you want to add lightness, they call it scrumbling. That's a whole nother conversation.
Scrumbling?
Scrumbling, yeah, that's a term. So that's where you add opaqueness back to the image. It's a whole different situation. But I think, all you really have to do, again, is just concentrate on the basic value, where the light is coming from, and how you can push it into a stronger, more lighting scheme. The person who probably has it down the best is Nathan Fowkes. He was art director for like Prince of Egypt and at DreamWorks. He's a genius painter, man. Nathan Fowkes, Fowkes. He did a whole series called Understanding Light. It's super expensive. If you know how to, it's like $500. But if you're on the internet, you could find it if you know how to peruse the you know what I'm talking about, the parts of the internet where things don't cost so much.
Right.
I would do that and try to find some way to kick him something. You know what I mean? Buy a fucking anything else he has that's cheaper, something that you can get him some money. But he talks about lighting in the same way, the pool of light, the basic understanding of shadow, and he's a genius in terms of studying that. But if you don't have that availability and you just want to figure it out on your own, then just say, hey, look, where's the light coming from? And and how can I accentuate that in the image? How can I turn it from that to this to building up additional lights, so forth and so forth. So, yeah, I think that's about it. You got anything else, Brandon? Anything else you want to add?
No, I think
If now's the time to ask it, because I'm never going to fucking do this again. Like, you're cut off, Darth, whatever your name was. But, all right. So
No, I think he has a good start, and I think with just a little bit of touch up and a little bit of work, it's a pretty cool piece. I don't know the characters very well, but it's got a really cool movie scene to it. I would even put, this is dumb, but this is just my opinion. I'd even put a little widescreen look on it, the little black bar on top and bottom, because it looks like a straight out of a movie scene. So it's cool.
yeah, you're definitely getting there. Just focus more on the value and how to punch that up, and give yourself a time limit. Give yourself 20 minutes. See what you can do in 20 minutes, and don't worry about it being perfect. That's why the roughies are so great. So, all right, everybody, that's about that. We're going to be back soon. I got a color Kill La Kill. I'm going to be back on here in a minute. We're going to do some Copic rendering and finish that one up. So, see you all next on the next Art Tips. Bye, everybody. Bye, Brandon. Say bye, Brandon.
Later.
Derpy derp. Derpy derp. If only Brandon could listen as well still as he talks. You good, Brandon?
I'm good.
Got anything else?
Nah.